Redcar and Cleveland Business Network. It's great to see new faces and also some familiar ones as well. So we hope you've all had a great summer break. For those who don't know me, my name is Darren Winter. I'm the Company Director of Duco Digital, and along with Karen King from King Celebrant Services, we're volunteers. We co-manage the Redcar and Cleveland Business Network. Just want to say a big thanks to Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council. They provide the room that you're here in today, the refreshments and the underground car parking, all for free, and also to Be Financial, who support the website, redcarandclevelandbusinessnetwork.com. Just a quick note to say that all the events are recorded and they're going to be available up on the social channels later on, so you can watch them because not everybody can make the early starts. There is no fire alarm evacuation plans, so if the alarm does go off, it is for real. And the way to leave is out here on the right, follow the green running man, or via the main staircase. Out on the right is also where you find the loos as well. Today's agenda, we've got a welcome, we've got the refreshments, and then we've got a brief introduction from Sarah Robson from Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council. And then our main guest speaker will welcome Ben Houchen, Tees Valley Mayor. Now Ben is going to do a little bit of talking, but actually quite like to hear from you. So if you've got questions, start thinking about what you would like to ask. Please keep them business focused where you can. Okay, sometimes things do cross over, but we're looking for kind of business focused questions, especially around the Redcar and Cleveland area. And then we're due to close around 8:30. And then there's time for refreshments and networking at the end, okay, if you've got time. Usually we'd ask everybody to introduce their business and stand up, because that's what everybody loves doing. That's why everybody comes back every single month to do that. That's our unique selling point. But because there's so many people this month, we won't really have time to do that. So what we're going to do instead, we're going to give people the opportunity just to promote an event. I'm going to kick off, so just while you're thinking about what you might want to talk about, I've got some already planned. We had a fantastic summer across the borough with lots of really fantastic events actually in Redcar and around the surrounding area. But some notable events coming up. We've got Primrose Bell Market in Redcar on Saturday, 10 till 6. There's also the same day you've got the Master Pop-Up Market. I think that's new.
Yeah, it's about 3 or 4 weeks it's been running, yeah.
So that's a really good one. So if you're local, looking for something a little bit different, that sounds really great. Saltburn Hill Climb. Every single year, so hopefully the weather will stay good for that on Sunday, so that's really good fun. Big event this month, Festival of Thrift, so that's a huge event. There's a lot of work gone into that. They came here to speak a few months ago, and there's some really fantastic things planned, so please come along to that. It's free entry, I think just £5 for cars, but there are lots of great independent businesses from around Tees Valley attending there. And then the Saltburn Farmers Market, Saturday 14th September, and then a big mention to the Indie Redcar. That's a new event this year. It's at Coton Memorial Hall in the town. Independent beer and gin. So food and music festival. So I think that everybody, sounds like a lot of fun on there as well. So if you need any more information on that, you can just go to our Facebook pages or just give us a shout at the end there. Okay, so would anybody like to share an event? Anybody got anything coming up? Go for it.
Hi, I'm Helen from Daisy May's Vintage Tea Room. We've got a children's family event happening with Charm Productions. The Tuesday of the October bank holiday, we're doing half term, sorry, I'm very tired. Yeah, we've got an Alice in Wonderland event. So we've got the Mad Hatter, Alice and the Rabbit coming, and there's going to be, it's sort of much more professional, so it's not just someone coming in dressed up, they're actually going to do some acting and some poetry and things like that. So tickets are on sale now, you need to come to the tea room or catch us online. So yeah, come and join us because it's going to be a great, I think, afternoon. All right, thank you.
I'm Denise Nesbitt. On Saturday we have the 16th group taking part, finishing off the Cleveland Scarecrow Festival. It's been an astounding success. Saltburn alone raised £600. We'll raise 900, all going back into the local community. Easington touched over, I think it was £2,000, but this is all local events, bringing money back to communities. On another note, John Nesbitt Engineering celebrating 25 years in business this year, an independent business that's gone from strength to strength and remained firmly in the Tees Valley area.
Can I just, very quick one, this just arrived on my email this morning. It's from everyone active, and can I just read it? Please be aware this weekend, Saturday the 7th and Sunday the 8th of September, all sites will be offering free access to their gyms and public swimming sessions for people in your local community living with dementia and their carers. It's all part of National Dementia Carers Day, and that's literally arrived from Chris Crawley for everyone active, free for anyone you know with dementia. Get along and enjoy the free services.
Right, thank you, Brian. Thank you. Anybody else like a couple more? Yeah, go for it.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I work at Jackson's Law Firm over in Stockton. Every month we do something called the TS18 event. That starts at 8 o'clock, so if anybody fancies coming along for a nice cup of tea, coffee, and breakfast is always on as well if you fancy bacon butty. Something else that we're also doing, we sponsor, every year we sponsor a charity, and this year's charity is called Josie's Dragonfly Trust. And what that does is it helps raise funds for children that are terminally ill, children and teens with terminal cancer. So this month, on the 12th of September, we've got an event, a golfing event. So if anybody would like, if anyone likes a bit of golf, fancy coming along, then please just get in touch with me after this, and we can tell you some more information. Thank you.
Great stuff. One more. Well, quickly then, just for both of you.
Hi, sorry, my name's Dan Poole. I'm founder and director of One Wildlife Stockton. I'm working with the Middlesbrough Football Club to raise awareness of men's mental health on the 1st of October, which is the game against Preston North End. We've basically got a few kids who were basically bereaved by suicide from their father. We're going to do a lot of awareness on that day. We're going to be shouting about it and stuff like that. So yeah, so keep your eyes peeled. I also hold a weekly peer support meeting in the Silver Spoon Cafe in Headlington. That's every Wednesday from 6 till 7:30 as well. So anybody who suffers with mental health or family, if they want to get some further support, please come down and we'll be there from tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Nick from Project Escape. We are a live escape room. We are working with NFC Foundation, which is good to hear. And for everyone here, we're running a league, so it's a triple threat of you can do team building activity, you can donate to a local charity, which is NFC Foundation, and you can get your business name in the matchday programme as putting all the results in the matchday programme. And if you do it, you can also try and beat Mr. Houchen's time, because he's game.
It's a difficult time to be.
It's a difficult time.
Thanks very much, everybody. And anybody else or anybody that's spoken, if you have got social media posts going out, do tag us in. They will be on the slides at the end. Okay, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Tag us in. We'll reshare it for you. We've also got a newsletter going out now, so there's an opportunity for you to promote things in there. It's all free. Just let us know. Okay, we're going to hand over to Sarah Robson from Redcar and Cleveland Council. Who's just going to give an introduction to business in Redcar and Cleveland. Thanks,
Okay.
Sarah.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. I'm quite quiet, so if you can't hear me, can you just tell me to shout up? I'll try and make sure that you can all hear me. Can I just say what a great pleasure it is to be here this morning to see you all. As somebody who is relatively new to Redcar and Cleveland, I've lived here for 25 years, but I've never had the opportunity to work here. It's a lovely pleasure to come here and to get to know some of the businesses. I think when we work in regeneration in local government, we really understand that we can do an awful lot to enable a place to make a significant contribution, but the only way we will really grow and see success in the local area is if companies like yours are doing really well and the wider business community is thriving and doing well, and we're here to help you. So it's a great opportunity to be here, and I wanted to just make sure you all know the team who are here as well. So I've got a couple of members of staff. Can I ask you all to just stand up and say hello? There's a couple of people hiding amongst the crowd. There's more David at the back. So hopefully you all know the members of the Redcar and Cleveland business team. There's not many of them anymore, but they're very valuable and they're really keen to work with you and to do what we can to support you going forward. I certainly feel that this borough is a great place to do business. I think we've got some really strong strengths. and I think there's a really lots of unique opportunities to do things as we go forward. We have a really strong focus on enterprise, so Lola, who works particularly in the enterprise space, I hope you know her and you sort of found her help to be a great support. I know I have since I've been here, but we do an awful lot in the enterprise space. We also work in terms of place investment grants, so we're really supporting work on the high street. That's a particular priority for us at the moment. So if you've got a business on the high street and you're wanting some support, please talk to us about that. We're also very keen to handhold you and help you find the agencies that might have more dedicated support for you. So hopefully we're well networked and we've got really good connections. So if you can use us for that, please do so. We put out the weekly business bulletin, which is about celebrating success in Redcar and Cleveland, and doing that in partnership with the Business Network, so that we're really there keen to promote and see all the different things that we can do. And we also have our award-winning employment hubs in South Bank and Grangetown. So we've just celebrated the 1,000th person into work in Grangetown, and we're already close to 1,100. So we're really sort of working very hard in those communities and linking very much with some of the inward investors that are coming to the area. So for example, MGT or Sirius, we're working with those companies to understand what those employment opportunities are, working with local people and making sure that we're connecting the two. So I think the priority really for us is to make sure that we're supporting small companies who want to set up here to grow, working with existing companies to help you to grow and to thrive, working with inward investors who want to come into the area, helping them to see what's on offer, make sure they know about the support and make sure local people are benefiting from those jobs and also from spend within the local economy and within that supply chain, and then trying to promote all of that great success and make sure that you gain benefit from that primarily. So that's really important to us. What I did also want to say though is, and really I think the reason many of us are probably here today, we all know we're much stronger when we work together. We can do what we're doing, you can do what you're doing, but we can share a much more powerful message when we work together. And that's equally the same at the Tees Valley level. So we work very closely with the Combined Authority and with Ben's team over there, and there is some excellent support in terms of Business Compass and some of the other teams that are available in the Combined Authority. I think the teams, as I say, they work very closely together, but there are some specific examples of where things really do achieve much more through that collaborative approach. So if I could just touch on British Steel, which I think we're all aware of as being a major issue for us in the recent past. Redcar and Cleveland Council has been working very much in the background to support Ben and to support the Combined Authority team and to support the businesses, the various parts of the different British Steel business. But I think what we've seen there is certainly Ben's impact at a national level, working with ministers, working with others to make sure that we get a really powerful message out there about how important British Steel is, not just to us, but to the economy of the UK. So when we see that level of kind of impact that we can have at a national level and how we can secure the future of one of our key industries by working really collaboratively together, I think that's a great example of success. Obviously we're not there yet, I think there's a lot more work going on, I'm sure Ben will update us on that. But if we look at the future of the South Tees Development Corporation site, I think that's another example of where we need to kind of collaborate, we need to understand what those opportunities are and work really, really closely together. So for me, as somebody, I've only been here a few months, I've worked outside of the area for a long time, it's an absolute pleasure to be back, but it's also an equal pleasure to welcome Ben here today and look forward to hearing what he's got to say.
Thank you for that introduction, Sarah. It's a bit of an ungodly hour for me to start in the morning. I remember when I used to run my own business and I used to turn up to networking events. Sometimes there's a couple of them that start kind of 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I thought I'd put that behind me. But I think one of the reasons Karen was kind enough to invite me, and thank you for that, Karen, is events like this are extremely important, if for nothing else, just to try and get out the message about what is actually going on out there, because one of the biggest frustrations that I have is there is a lot of really good things going on, not just in Redcar, but across Teesside, Darlington and Hartlepool as well. And often people don't know about it, and it's one of the biggest frustrations that I have. I'm also aware that I do like the sound of my own voice, and I've liked this talk for a long time, so if somebody can just give me a wave in the background when they want me to stop, because I'm keen to answer some questions. But I'm going to try and take on a bit of a whistle-stop tour about what I actually do. So for those of you that have no idea who I am, I'm the Mayor of the Tees Valley. I was elected 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, as part of this kind of George Osborne, David Cameron devolution, Northern Powerhouse thing that kind of went away and seems to be coming back again, but nobody's quite sure. And the whole idea behind that is that instead of decisions being made in London and Whitehall by civil servants and ministers who, let's be honest, have no idea where Teesside is, have never been here, never heard of it, and don't understand it, you give the money and the powers back to the local area and let them take control over local decision making. So as an elevator pitch, what do? Well, thankfully, and I'll leave this with Sarah and Karen, I'm not a local councillor. I don't have to deal with all of the problems around social services, bins, potholes, all of that, thankfully, is a much more difficult job that the local councils have to deal with. My job, very fundamentally, is about how do we drive economic growth and job creation across the Tees Valley. That is what I'm there to do. And that's broken down into a number of different segments. Number one, that I always put right at the top of the list, and I think having run my own business, the pressures and the stresses, the problems that local businesses face, both from, I've never had any interaction with Redcar and Cleveland Council, but local councils, other regulation, HMRC, all of those things. We need to do as much as we can to unleash business to be able to succeed where they can. It's actually quite refreshing as well to hear a local council talk positively about engaging with business. Often they have their heads in the sand and they're very worried about the fact that they've got reduced budgets, which is obviously a major concern. They're very concentrated on their statutory priorities, making sure that nothing falls over. And it's very difficult for councils to look to the horizon about how do they grow the business base, because let's be honest, unless businesses are thriving, there are fewer business rates, there are fewer people in employment, and that has a great strain on the local authority to provide those vital services that everybody needs. So we do work very closely, not just with Redcar and Cleveland, but all of the local councils. And where we try and do the heavy lifting at my office is on the big macro stuff, the stuff that doesn't really take a couple of weeks to solve, but will take 5, 10, 15 and 20 years. And one thing I can say is that Redcar and Cleveland, while sometimes it might not feel like it given the disruptions we had 3-4 years ago now with the SSI closure, the uncertainty recently over British Steel, the opportunity in Redcar is far greater than any other borough, not just in Teesside, but across the North Eastern Yorkshire. Actually, the Development Corporation site, which I know some of you will have heard about and some of you will know more than others, the potential of that site is genuinely astronomical. I mean, just some of the basic numbers we're talking about, just on that site alone and supporting that site, you're talking about 25,000 jobs over the next 25 years. A huge number of jobs, which will completely dwarf what was there under SSI. And we're working quite extensively, and we're in some quite advanced negotiations with a couple of organisations to see if we can get those investments announced in the not too distant future. We'll see, certainly in the near term, hundreds of jobs, but certainly over the next 5, 6, 7 years, thousands of jobs, just on that one project alone. So often you see the big redevelopment stuff doesn't often fit well with politics. You know, politicians, short term, what can I get tomorrow? I need to announce it, I've got an election next month. Actually, the Development Corporation is one of those unique beasts that we've been very honest with the public that it's going to take time. Even an announcement that might come later this year on what will be a major infrastructure project, not just for Teesside, but will power, I think, the UK economy for many years to come. Those jobs are going to take time to come. It's going to take another 12, 18, 24 months to actually get ramped up of jobs on site, construction jobs, and then full-time jobs, and then in the supply chain. So again, one of the things that I think people are often too quick to do is say how amazing something is. People expect jam today, and it doesn't arrive, and then people get disaffected with politicians and say, well, hang on, you said this was coming, and actually being a bit more realistic about the timescales of this, because the economic shock that occurred with SSI, let's be honest, was horrible, but it also wasn't the start. I mean, we've known for decades that the steel industry with SSI has been in trouble. We've gone from a peak of many thousands of jobs down to when it closed, there were about 1,100 jobs that were directly employed, and then the jobs in the supply chain. So it's been a category of failures that means that that's not a quick fix. As in your business, if you suffered a loss of a major client or a real disruption to your revenue streams, you can't turn that around overnight. Actually, that's going to take time to build up. And the complexity of the site is absolutely enormous. The need, for example, I mean, just to give you a bit of an insight of some of the things we deal with on a daily basis, it costs more than £1 million a month to pump nitrogen through the gas network on the site that is still there. Because if any of that material that's in the gas pipeline comes into contact with oxygen, you get fire, you get explosions, you get very dangerous things happening. So little insights into the fact that how do we deconstruct that in a safe manner, which will take time, before we can even get onto the demolition of South Bank coke oven, the Redcar coke oven, how do we manage things like the blast furnace? Do we want to get rid of that? Do we want to maintain it as a piece of history? The sinter plant, what do we want to do with that? Actually, you could sell the sinter plant. It's actually worth a little bit of money. Do we want to deconstruct it? Do we want to sell it? Do we want to use it for something else? And it's such a complex engineering feat just to get the site ready for new investment that, again, just to deal with that progress is going to take a lot of time. And the one thing that's stopping us from even getting on with that to some extent, albeit because we've got powers and rights that have been given to us by government, we can deal with it even though we don't currently own the land. The other thing that's slowing us down is the compulsory purchase of the assets from SSI and receivership, because, as many of you will know, there are 3 Thai banks that have charges over the land. I couldn't possibly understand why, but 3 Thai banks basically lent SSI £800 million just under a year before they went bust, and not one single repayment was ever made. So I'm sure there is somebody in Thailand who's made an awful lot of money out of a very strange business and bank deal. But basically the Thai banks have like over your house, they have a mortgage over the land, and they're saying, we've lost £800 million, we want that money back. So how are you going to give us that money back? And the official receiver who's in charge of the site now, clearly they're not going to get £800 million back, they're going to get not even a fraction of that back because the money isn't there to give them. But they're being extremely stubborn. We had a number of conversations with the Thai banks to try and come up with a negotiated deal to get hold of the site. In all honesty, we were misled by the Thai banks that they were interested in a negotiated deal. They're not interested in a negotiated deal. And we also understand that SSI actually, are in SSI Thailand, that still exists, are actually in the background pulling some strings, which has been extremely, extremely unhelpful. So what we've had to do instead of that is we've gone through a compulsory purchase process, which means either at the end of this year or the middle of next year, depending on when we can get a hearing date, we'll be going to court and to a tribunal to ideally get awarded the compulsory purchase, which means we will then have ownership of the land to be able to get on and remediate it and get it right, demolish the assets on the site and make it ready for new investment. Now that seems kind of long and complicated, and you kind of think, well, you know, you're not even talking a few months, you're talking years away before you can really get investment on that site. What often people forget about the huge site that's over there is SSI is only a proportion of the site. So when you break down the site, the development corporation in total is 4,500 acres. It's a huge site. I don't work in acres, but it's 6 times the size of the City of London, 1.5 times the footprint of Heathrow. It's the biggest brownfield site in Europe, without a doubt. And if anybody can find another one, I think you're making it up. And it's huge. But SSI only accounts for less than half of that site. So when you actually take it into account, we talk about 4,500 acres. 4,500 acres is the gross number. You have 2,500 acres of developable land, or potentially developable land, because the rest is the SSI site on the coast, the South Gare, that obviously has environmental protections that you can't build on. And of the 2,500 acres that you can develop, 900 acres, give or take 20 acres, is SSI land. The other 1,400 acres, or 1,200 acres when you take out some of the protected pieces of land, is Tata land. Because when SSI was sold by Tata, they retained the rest of the land. And what we've already done, and hopefully many of you will have seen this, we've already bought that land from Tata. So we bought 1,400 acres of land on public record if you really wanted to spend your £6 on the land registry. We bought 1,400 acres of land from Tata for £11 million earlier this year, much earlier this year. And that land is actually in good condition, very good condition in fact. We've done a lot of site investigations and work surveys, and the remediation costs, you know, you always heard this figure, I think, when SSI closed, it's going to cost £1 billion to clean up this site. Not even close, not even close. The remediation works we've done, the site investigation works, the boreholes, all of the work we've done on the condition of the site is nowhere near as bad as that, and that's on the SSI assets. And on Tata, for any of you that know the site particularly well, a lot of the Tata land that they retain has never had anything on it for 30, 40, 50 years. So there isn't any contamination on it, especially places like South Bank Wharf, which has laid derelict for many, many years and hasn't had anything on it, is actually pretty ready for investment. So while we talk about SSI and getting that right, that's in the difficult box and is probably going to take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to get to a place where we can really develop it fully, although there'll be opportunities in the nearer future to do some smaller parcels of land. But today, we're already speaking with investors on the Tata sites. The many acres of land that we've got there to be able to get away and develop, and I'm hoping in the coming months there'll be some very public and positive announcements on large-scale engineering, manufacturing investment on the Tata part of that site, which I think will start to really change not just the Redcar and Cleveland economy, but the whole of the Tees Valley economy, the supply chain, what that means for businesses in Middlesbrough, Stockton. It's going to be something I think quite special. So that gives you a bit of an understanding of what I tend to deal with on a day-to-day basis on a large scale side. The other thing on business that it would be wrong of me to not mention, although I could have mentioned it a little bit later on, is the airport. Obviously the airport was the thing that won me the election, let's be honest. Wouldn't be stood here now in front of you if I hadn't have done that, and there was still on top of that a little bit of luck and timing that meant that I'm here. But we've managed to get hold of the airport, which I think is a fantastic thing. From today, the airport's life is now secure for at least 10 years. The 10-year plan that we've put in place means that it has the finances for 10 years, even if it stays in the dreadful state that it's currently in, doing 140,000 passengers. So that's not predicting we've got 10 years if we get up to 1 million passengers. No, today, if it stays as it is, we've got 10 years to secure that airport. So that gives us plenty of time to build a plan. You'll have seen that we've got some new flights, Balkan Holidays, flying to Bulgaria. They're also committed to next year, apparently flying into Sofia rather than the airport they're flying into this year, and Mallorca flights from next summer. So anybody going on holiday, please go to Bulgaria, please go to Mallorca. And well, you know, that often gets a laugh, thankfully. It's also important to say, we've got to use the airport. I mean, we've given it a chance. It was completely mishandled and run into the ground by Peel. But unless we use it when these flights do come along, we will lose it. And once so the Bulgaria flights have sold fantastically, which was the thing that allowed JetGo to bring the Mallorca flights. The Mallorca flights are selling quite well at the moment, considering the flights aren't until next summer. But if we can sell those, then you can use that as evidence to go to other airlines and say, look, things are selling. And it de-risks it for an airline because they can see that there is a demand there. So if you are genuinely considering going on holiday, please, you know, that's a great local asset. It's really important that we keep it, not just because you want to go on holiday, and I want to go on holiday to Alicante and Mallorca and Malaga and everywhere else where people want to go, but it's important from a business point of view. You know, people don't understand that the airport, in the state that it currently in, supports 800 jobs, both directly and in the supply chain. So had we allowed that to close, we would have just said goodbye to 800 jobs. That was 800 jobs that would have been lost. That's a third of SSI. That is not a small number of jobs. And the economic impact of having an airport, separate from flights to holidays, the money that adds into the local economy every year is £60 million every year is pumped back into the local economy by having that airport that wouldn't be there if we didn't have it. So often people think, well, you know what, it was, you know, there was a lot of politics in it because it was an election and I thought it was popular and politicians like to be popular. But hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight in that there was method to the madness, that this is about economic growth, jobs, both at the airport and at the Development Corporation. And on the other side of things, just to quickly touch upon very well, the time is ticking by, British Steel, on the other side of it, is often a part of the job that when you have an elected mayor for a region, you know, I represent across the Tees Valley 700,000 people, it's not a small number of people, that political mandate in effect from residents puts you on a pedestal with other national leaders. So we're arguing the toss now with Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, London, and I meet with people like Andy Burnham and Sadiq Khan once every couple of months. Teesside was never in a place 2 or 3 years ago. Whether it's me or somebody else, whoever wins the next election, it doesn't really matter. Whoever is now the regional mayor has a seat at the top table for Teesside that we've never had before. And all of a sudden we're now starting to get, you know, £130 million for the Development Corporation, which we've already had, and we're going to be asking the government for more, and I'm fairly certain when we ask for it, we will get it. Money for things like New Tees Crossing, Darlington Station, Middlesbrough Station. One of the things that we got, which is I think a minor victory, but I think a big one for people of Redcar and Cleveland, is we've been arguing the toss now with rail companies for about a year, and I'm expecting, and we're hopeful, that in the coming weeks there'll be an announcement from TransPennine Express that the Manchester Airport train through to Middlesbrough won't stop at Middlesbrough anymore, it will go through to Redcar. Now, the noises we're hearing are extremely positive, it hasn't been signed off yet, but again, it's those little things where you can have somebody to be able to take the time, who can then pick up the phone to the Chief Executive of TransPennine Express and say, you need to do this, because it's important to local people, and you know what, I'm going to cause you a headache if you don't do it as well. So that's quite important. And that leads me on to the transport side. So you can support business, and when I say we talk about big business, Sarah touched upon Business Compass as well, which is the other end of business, so everything from startups, small businesses wanting to scale up, access apprenticeship funding, access some funding to buy a piece of machinery, They can even come and talk to us if they've got an innovative idea of, a new piece of innovation, an IP, that they don't have the money to be able to commercialise. They can come to us and they can talk to us about investing or putting some money in that. We, in effect, I think, speaking honestly, is the local councils used to do this a lot. The local councils are doing this a lot less through no fault of their own, because they've had to take very difficult decisions about where they best spend the restricted money that they've got. And what's now happened, in the Tees Valley anyway, because there are very few Metro Mayor deals across the country, in effect a lot of that business support has been raised up to a regional level. So we have a team who will come and provide your business with support. They can tell you about what funding streams are available, they can tell you about apprenticeship funding, they can work with you to access some of that funding, they can tell you what other funding is available. They work extremely closely with the council teams that are there on the ground who, let's be honest, do have a better local knowledge than my team that kind of go out from Stockton, so they work very effectively together. But I would say to anybody here, if you have any interest in growing your business, taking on a member of staff, you've got any new ideas to start a business, you should be coming to speak to us, because there is money available, there is support available to be able to provide your business with that support. So you see the huge range of stuff on the economic growth side that we do, and then that has to link in with transport. So it's all very well and good, and I always use this as the example of creating 20,000 jobs on the Development Corporation site in Redcar, and that's fantastic for the people of Redcar. But the people of Redcar are not going to be able to fill all those jobs. That would be a wonderful place to be. So how do we make sure that little Jimmy or little Jane in Darlington, who wants to do an engineering apprenticeship, can get from Darlington to Redcar to access one of those jobs? So that means we need a good bus service, we need a good rail service, and so, for example, we're improving Darlington Station, we're improving Middlesbrough Station. The reason for that, at the minute, if you want to get on a train and go to Darlington, you can only get a train every half an hour. There's only 2 an hour going into Darlington because of the problems at Darlington Station. If we solve those problems, that's good for this area, because it means you can go up to between 6 and 8 trains an hour anywhere in the Tees Valley, which means, let's be honest, for the very first time, and I've lived in Teesside my whole life, the train would become a genuine alternative to a car, because at the minute it's not really. And then the other one that we're working on that will be live at the end of this year is a proper bus service. So East Cleveland, outside of the corridor, across to Loftus and Skelton, there are no bus services. It's the same in West Hartlepool, it's the same in Milton St George and the corridor between Stockton and Darlington. There will be a bus service that will come out at the end of this year that will service those people. It'll be slightly different, and it might take a bit of time getting used to, but you might have seen the headlines that it's going to be an Uber-style bus service where you can request the bus on your phone, you can ring up for people who don't have access to a phone, or you can book on your computer. But this is the thing, in the 21st century, we've got to start thinking about public transport in a 21st century way, and making sure that people have access via public transport to all of these opportunities that we're creating. And then the very last thing I just want to touch upon is that I've been fairly unashamedly, in my 2 years in charge, about putting business first, and particularly local business and local people. And it's one of the things that will be happening on the Development Corporation site as these investments come. And we're speaking to investors now about how we can make sure about local content. Obviously work very closely with guys like MGT to make sure that that's managed correctly, despite some of the problems that they've had. But the examples that I can give you where we have done it because we've been able to is the airport. Every contract we've let the airport has gone to a Tees Valley company. Whether it's the accountants that used to be when Peel used them, Deloitte's, and yes, Deloitte's accounts are all over the country, but they were using their London arm to do that. As soon as we got hold of that, we got a local Tees Valley-based firm with local Tees Valley-based people doing our accounts. We've also got, just earlier this week, we've just relaunched the website. I don't know whether everybody's seen it. It's a nice website. A few glitches, but we're getting through it. Fantastic local business in Hush in Darlington built that website for us. So wherever, and for as long as I'm in charge, for wherever we are letting contracts, I will make sure they've got local businesses. And I can guarantee you that, because whatever people tell you, where there's a will, there is a way around procurement and processes. As long as you're clever, you can make sure that local business can be put at the front of the queue. And that's my vision for the Development Corporation site. It's all very well and good getting a manufacturing business, building a £1 billion plant and employing 800 people, but where's the supply chain? Because 800 jobs is an amazing place to be, but where are the other 2,000 jobs? And how do we make sure that if you're doing, offshore wind, which is one of the things that we're looking extremely heavily at, how do you make sure that Wilton Engineering gets some of the manufacturing in the supply chain, so the assembly happens at the Development Corporation, but the supply chain is literally just down the road, or Gary Dawson at AB Dawson in Millsborough. I mean, the supply chain's endless, but how do we make sure that those businesses are primed to take the opportunities of those businesses that arrive as well? And it's quite a complex picture. and it's often things that I spend a lot of my time on, but I'm pleased to say that we work extremely closely, genuinely, with Redcar and Cleveland Council. I mean, Mary Lanigan, the leader, sits on the Development Corporation board. Sarah is heavily involved. We have to be, because what we don't want to do is bring an investor and then find when we've got a planning at Redcar and Cleveland Council that Redcar and Cleveland Council throw it out, which I'm sure they wouldn't. But again, we don't want to cause any surprises to Redcar and Cleveland Council. So actually, in all honesty, working with Redcar and Cleveland Council has been extremely good, and we do work hand in glove, and I do want to give thanks to Sarah, and in particular Mary and Karen, who have both been absolutely fantastic supporters. And that's one of the things that I try and pride myself on, irrespective of politics, where I find good people wanting to do good things for our area. I will always praise them, and while I think Karen might be wrong on her political views in the party that she's a party of, Karen as an individual, absolutely fantastic, and if they're good for the Tees Valley area, then they're good for me, and I'm happy to work with them. So that's the same for Karen. It's actually the same for all of the leaders across the Tees Valley, which includes Bob Cook, who's a Labour leader in Stockton. Actually, I think we've got a good set of people who want what's best for the local area. But at the same time, we need to make a call to businesses to make sure that you feel like you're supported, but also you're the ones that are going to drive the economy, you're going to drive the job creation. All we can do is set the environment to help you succeed, and if you're succeeding, then everybody's a winner. So I said it was going to happen, but I do know if there is time to run over, or if we can ask any questions, I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Okay. Go for Nathan. So you mentioned about Hoss Digital during the website, and I work in the web industry myself, but I never even knew there was a contract up for that. So how do we get onto your radar as a business?
It's an interesting one, actually. So again, in all honesty, it goes to the point of procurement. So how do you procure a website without going through weeks or months of local authority bureaucracy about procurement and public sector rules? And it often depends on the value of the contract. So depending on how large the contract is, it can simplify our procurement. And at the lower end, which in all honesty, the building of the website is, a few £1,000s, not tens of thousands of pounds. We often find, by default, we will try and scour the local area and invite as many local businesses as possible that we think are relevant to apply. So yes, that's a failure, because we need to be able to push that out to more businesses. There will be more digital contracts coming up, not just for the airport, but within the Tees Valley area, around the Development Corporation, the Combined Authority, etc. So all I can say is, if you know of any business, yourself or others, who may not be on our radar, get in touch with us, because we can add you to our list to make sure that any contracts that then get flagged, you will automatically be notified at that lower end, because we don't have to notify, we don't have to stick it on a portal for 3 weeks to make it happen. The larger the contracts, then we do, and then you should get more public notifications. But at that lower end, because there are quite a lot of contracts at that lower end that can be used, we just need businesses to encourage themselves, to put themselves forward. And it's one of the things I've said in the last 2 years. It's a great example. Businesses being more forthright and more forceful in putting themselves forward. And unless you do that, and don't feel shy in coming up to me and saying, look, I've got this local business, we could have done that website, that's what I want to hear, because I want to make sure that when I go back to the office, I can feed you into that, so when any other opportunities come up, you get the opportunity to take it. So I can only apologise for that, but the frank answer is that's how it will have happened.
Thank you.
So.
I don't know how much I don't know, but of all the development you were talking about, how much of that is dependent on and related to the Freeport thing, and will the airport be included in that at all?
So none of the investment we're currently talking about is dependent on the Freeport. The idea of a Freeport is what is the thing that gives us an additional advantage beyond others. So I can tell you, for example, there are a number of businesses that are looking at the Development Corporation site and the old SSI Steelworks site, who are also looking at 3 or 4 other sites across the world. The only site in the UK they're looking at is Teesside. So what can we do that pushes them over the line that would make them choose here rather than elsewhere? Because a Freeport isn't a panacea. This isn't the thing that obviously solves all of our problems. It's an additional tool in our arsenal that makes us more competitive. So you can't set up a Freeport in the middle of the Sahara Desert and expect it to be an economic powerhouse. You still need good transport links. Well, we've got the A1, we've got the A19, we've got the A66, 3 major road arteries if you're a manufacturing and logistics business to get in and out of the port. We've got the deepest port on the east coast of the UK. I think the deepest port, according to PD Ports anyway, the deepest port in England. So we've got great infrastructure right on the shipping lanes. You've got great road access. Because of the old steelworks and ICI, the rail network on the Development Corporation site is amazing. There are some problems that we need to fix, but actually the infrastructure that's already there is amazing. So we already have a great thing to sell, which is why we get shortlisted, and which is why often for the big manufacturing projects, especially kind of big manufacturing, engineering, energy projects, Teesside is the only UK site that gets shortlisted. But in a global context, what's that little thing that tips us over the edge? Because there'll be others across the world that can say the same thing. What's the thing that differentiates us? And so I think free ports won't stop investment coming, but if we didn't get free ports, won't stop investment coming, but it would give us, I think, a global advantage, on top of the fact that the UK has a developed regulatory framework, it's a mature market, people like doing business here, it will add to that. But it just shows, actually, when we're talking about that site, we're not talking about moving businesses from Redcar High Street or a business park in Darlington to the Development Corporation site. We are talking about businesses. So one that was just announced before Christmas, a company called OGCI, the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, which is a consortium of all of the major oil and gas businesses in the world. So Total, BP, Shell, Equinor, the list goes on, there are about 3 or 4 others. They want to come to Teesside and they want to build the world's first industrial scale carbon capture and storage scheme. It's going to cost billions of pounds. Just to do their engineering study, their FEED study, it's going to cost about 560 million pounds, 600 million pounds to do, and it's going to take about 18 months to complete. It's a massive project. They are looking at Teesside. They chose Teesside out of 21 global sites. Teesside was the only UK site that they considered. So just to put it in context, we're not competing with local businesses to move here. This is a genuinely unique site globally. It's the biggest site in Europe, but it's a unique site globally for all of the things that we've done in this country for the last 150 years. It's not as if we're reinventing the wheel. We're using our traditional engineering and manufacturing skills, we're updating them for the 21st century. And one of the biggest sells by far for this area is the workforce. Because people see that the Redcar Steelworks closed in 2015 and they just see a ready-made workforce to be able to pull up and bring back into engineering employment rather than, let's be honest, the lower skilled, lower paid employment that they now find themselves in. So, again, whistle stop talk, but hopefully that gave you a bit of a flavour of the answer.
Any other questions? Thought we'd do more.
You've
done a good job then. Anybody else? I think. Okay, yeah, please.
I appreciate what you're saying about the bus route. I worked on that no bus, poor bus.
Yeah.
And so we have got somewhere near where we're going to be, and it is quite a strange plan of how it's going to work. But I work for, my name's Dean Coates, sorry, for RCVDA, and we're looking at wheels to work. So we're looking at sort of East Cleveland, getting people who have been out of work for certain lengths of time. Can they use cars? Can they use electric bikes? Can we use scooters, basically?
Yep.
And I think, obviously, it's the gentleman we're dealing with, Fran, up at the Combined Authority.
Yep, that's right.
We've got a bit of a block on the money that's helping us to get these, procure these bikes to help individuals get there, because the bus route's never going to be perfect in certain areas. How do you think that might be something to go forward with?
No, it's fantastic. Fran is a massive advocate of Wheels to Work. He's talked to me about it a lot recently. Interestingly enough, there'll be some very positive news in the next week or two about that. So I'm expecting to be able to give you a significant amount of money to acquire some more scooters. Because that, I mean, genuinely, is a great example of what businesses are doing in the community. Wheels to Work is amazing. You know, I don't know how you've managed to acquire the number of scooters you have already, but making sure that young people or people who find themselves getting back into work but without the transport can hire cheap scooters and other forms of transport to be able to get there. It's just a great way. And I just want to, one of the things we've been speaking to about with Fran is how do we work with you to get you up to a sustainable model, and we would love to see that, because that's a great, I mean, again, buses, trains, not panacea. What are the other transport mixes? And genuinely, if anybody hasn't looked into it, I'm waffling a little bit, but do take a look at Wheels to Work, because it's a great community scheme. So, no, absolutely, Dean will be supporting that.
There's a couple of questions here, otherwise I want to ask one as well. If, one of the things, because we represent a lot of small businesses and sole traders, and it's great to see so much new funding available now with the main Tees Valley Business Compass scheme sort of came to an end. We now got the MBSL collaboration, which is a lot more flexible in terms of opening up to the consumer market, B2C side. The threshold is still quite high, so do you think there might be something on the horizon that can be maybe a bit more approachable? Because £2,500 for some sole traders is still quite a bit of an ask. Potentially they're looking at maybe sort of like £1,000, £1,500 for things like website and digital training. Do you think that might come up in the next sort of 18 months as well?
No, so there is, whether we get that far, I'm not entirely confident or sure, if I'm brutally honest, but one of the things that is happening is the Business Compass contract is coming to an end at the end of this year. Just so, without wanting to get too boring on the technical detail, in effect, and this happened before I was elected, it was decided that rather than engaging with business, we would just outsource it to a third party, which was BE Group, which we call Business Compass, and this arm's length body, in effect, manages this business support for us on our behalf. And yes, there are some KPIs, and we kind of keep an eye on it, but we have little control over it because somebody decided to just outsource it all to a third party. What we will be doing, and I'll be bringing forward in October, is we will be bringing that all back in-house. So we will be able to manage that. We will be able to take a much more holistic view on the type of funding we can give, because they just treat it like any sort of funding application, especially around European funding because of the strings attached. And that's quite frustrating for a business, and it's quite procedural, and it's a lot of form filling and all that kind of nonsense, let's be honest. Whereas we can say, well, we're not there to make money. It would be ideal if we could get our money back, because then we can reinvest it in something else, but we're not there to make a profit. And so what we can do is take a more holistic view on the types of fundings that we can give. The other aspect as well is that European funding comes with huge strings attached, so one of the biggest frustrations I have with that pot of money is it cannot be business to consumer. So if you're a retail business, you're a restaurant, you're a business that you sell to a customer rather than to another business, you can't access any of those funds. So what we're talking about is if we're going to replace those funds, forgetting what's happening in the absolute shambles that is Westminster at the moment, even if we have European money going forward, or even if we don't, is there another pot of money we can use that's much more flexible, that means we can support our local restaurants, our local shops, our local retailers? Because at the minute, anybody who owns any sort of retail or customer business in here who may have applied for funding will have just got a big fat no on day one, because it's just a red line that you can't access. So we are looking at that to be much more flexible, because let's be honest, small traders are the lifeblood of our local economy. We talk about the steelworks, we talk about other major employers across the region, but actually small businesses account for 97% of the economy. They account for something like 99% of employment. So we need to do more to support them, and that's so we will be looking at in October a new scheme that will be rolled out from next January.
Fantastic, thank you. So we've got a couple of questions here.
Just see someone put a hand up.
Yeah, a couple of men, and I'm not even going to mention dementia, by the way, with these questions. Two of the areas you've touched on, and one interests me, the T's, the airport, because I think what we also have already there, but we really fail to market it, and I don't know whether you would help, is KLM. We do the City Hopper, and the number of people I speak to, I'm fortunate I get to travel a little bit, go to Newcastle or go to Leeds Bradford, and I'll say, well, why are you going up to down Tees Valley? Well, there's nowhere to go, and I say, yeah, you can get to Schiphol Airport, and from there you can get anywhere. So I think really encouraging KLM as a greater investor would be a magical thing to do. And the second one, which is completely not related, as you mentioned earlier about obviously the coming court case for compulsory purchase. Yeah. And it is a long-term plan, as you said, and rightly so. You are at the whims of the judicial system on whether that's successful. Is there a plan B and plan C, or how confident do you feel about
so by definition, there can't be a plan B, because our plan A was a negotiated deal with the Thai banks to just make them go away. Our then fallback, by definition, if you can't agree a deal, is to go through the courts. What we can say is all of the advice that we're getting from, let's be honest, some very expensive lawyers who have spent a long time. We're talking over about 18 months now we've been preparing the CPO, because we've always run it in parallel. We haven't said, let's negotiate a deal, oh that didn't work, let's start CPO. We've always known that we might have had to do it. We're extremely confident. We can never be certain, because you're right, judicial system, depending on the judge, depending on how it's presented, depending on any sort of weakness that we may have overlooked, it can go wrong, but I would be extremely surprised if it did. On the KLM flight, you're absolutely right, they've never really marketed it. People underestimate Schiphol as the size of an airport, and it is basically having a Heathrow, because it is a huge, huge airport. So there's a lot of work going on about advertising. In effect, you know what, if you want to go on holiday to Hong Kong, go via Teesside, go into Schiphol, and then you've got a direct flight out. Anyway, if you want to go to Australia, there aren't, I think there's one direct flight in the UK to somewhere in Australia, but you're always going to have to go via a connection. So actually locally, why not go via Schiphol and support the local airport. So there's a lot of interesting things about the airport. So it's very early days yet, but you know, what an interesting connection into places like Belfast and Dublin, in particular Dublin because it's got the clearance through to North America, so there's a really good connection there. Is there a connection into London? So does that go into City Airport, potentially into Heathrow, which is more complicated, but there's a potential conversation there. Do we go into Southend because Stobart owns Southend? Southend I think is more difficult because you're flying out of London to try and get into it. And then we're obviously working on all of the commercial scheduled flights where, you know, 2 or 3 times a week we'll hopefully be going to, you know, mainland Spain, France, Portugal, all the places where people want to go. But again, it's a bit like the Development Corporation, albeit it's not going to be 20 years. You know, people want flights tomorrow. One of the things I always think about the airport was for the first 2 years of my job, from the day I was elected, people said, have you bought the airport yet? Have you bought the airport yet? Have you bought the airport? And it was just constant, and yeah, that question got pretty old pretty quickly. But as soon as we bought it, it was, have you got any flights yet? Have you got any flights yet? And then we kind of announced a couple of charter flights, which is kind of a signal of intent rather than the thing that's going to save the airport. And now it's evolved into a more nuanced position of everybody just recommending where they should be going. And that's fine, that's brilliant, because there's some really interesting intelligence, because there are some destinations that are quite common. But again, you've got to say to those people, yes, we want to go to those places, but it's got to be evidence-based, because I could, with airports, it's dead easy. I could pay an airline to come in tomorrow and fly to Berlin. They could come in and fly to Alicante tomorrow. But if we put that flight on, we're having to underwrite the risk. So are we going to sell the seats to be able to get bums on seats to be able to get our money back? And if we don't do that, the airline is going to just kind of say, well, hang on, you're not filling it, we're taking it elsewhere. And as soon as you do that, especially on the first one, when we're talking about proper scheduled flights that go for 2 or 3 times a week, 52 weeks a year, if you get that wrong and that flight gets pulled in 3 or 4 months because you're not selling the tickets, you might as well kiss goodbye. So we've got to be extremely careful about how we introduce the first flights to make sure, and that's why we say it's a 10-year plan. Don't look at the first 12 months, you've got to look at 10 years. And in 10 years, we will get back to more than 1 million passengers. Well, we will get to more than 1 million passengers. We'll have 10 new routes. The airport will be back in profit. We'll see a huge number of businesses on the site. I mean, there's a massive plan to develop the south side of the airport. There's a big master plan that we're developing that will be coming forward. That costs £400 million to build the business park on the south side of the airport. Again, you don't do those things overnight. And that's where I'm in the hands of the public, because I'm trying to do something that I think people often in politics don't do by saying, I can't promise you this tomorrow. I can tell you what it's probably going to be like in 2 or 3 years' time, but to some extent you're going to have to trust me on that. And that's a very difficult thing with politics, especially at the minute. But you know, that's life. And the one thing I always think is that irrespective of whether I'm doing this job or not, I'm born and raised in Teesside, lived in my whole life, I will be in Teesside. So even if I'm not doing this job, I want to make sure that the long term is set correctly so whoever takes over can continue with that plan, because it's a good plan, and that I can be sat here in 5 years' time and say, look, actually, at least I contributed towards some of that and it was the right thing to do. And we didn't go for a quick win, we went for a long-term sustainable future of both the Development Corporation and the airport.
One more question. Somebody get their hand up. But okay, thank you very much, Ben. I think you kind of covered absolutely everything there, and we need to give Ben a round of applause. Ben's going to be hanging around at the end, so if there's anything that you'd like to ask him kind of more personally, then please feel free just to approach him, but please don't all crowd at once. That's it for this month. Just want to thank you very much for attending once again. Our next event is going to be on Wednesday, the 2nd of October, 7:30 AM. Tickets will be going out on Eventbrite, free as always, but later on this week, and the video will be available on Watch Again as well. Thank you very much. Enjoy the time for networking and refreshments. Thank you.
Before we end though, there's a health check outside. If your local business need a health check, we've got some nice people from the council who are there doing a business health check, so please go and see them afterwards for a few minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you.